exactly. I think if for a small to mid-sized mobile game developer that wants to experiment with paid advertising, I wouldn't recommend going with mobile ad networks. I would recommend starting on Facebook,
Hmm.
simply because, like you're saying, it's hyper targeted. The other day, I wrote about Facebook's lookalike audiences.
Yeah,
Oh, I wrote about this in my free course too.
yeah.
Like basically, you can piggyback on Supercell's audience and put your game in front of them. Now, granted, you need to have the same target market as they do in order to really see success from that. But if you want to do that, it's available to you via Facebook.
Yeah, I've seen that with other products as well. Like, let's say you've got like a marketing automation solution, you could potentially target like HubSpot's audience or Infusionsoft because like
Right. Yeah.
they've already like built up that audience and they're probably after similar products or competing products or complementary products.
Hmm. It's pretty amazing how far advertising has come just in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and something that I wrote about in a blog post recently was about kind of cross-platform experience. And one thing I mentioned is that like the ad networks have figured out how to target you cross-platform. So when you switch between like web and mobile or iPad, like it just follows you around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. My wife and I will be watching TV, and there will we watch a lot of on demand, which is like from our cable
Yeah,
service, because we just don't have time to. We have two kids now, and we don't have time to kind of hit everything when it airs. So we'll be watching a show on demand, and an ad for Clash of Clans will play, and I'll look at
yeah.
my wife and I'll say, "Look, they're following me to the TV."
Well, I actually read somewhere they said last year, or maybe in the year before, it was the year that like game companies started spending more on TV ads, like this big
Mhm.
kind of Super Bowl style ads. Like in the last Super Bowl, I think there was like 3 or 4 ads or something from game
Yeah,
companies.
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty, yeah, especially when you know how much they cost. They cost like about $1 million, or a little over to do those ads, and it's just what 15 to 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah,
So
you're seeing them in Australia as well, like particularly around I think it's like the Christmas time. You'll see an ad for like Candy Crush or their related games, and I feel like the
yeah,
reason they're doing that is to boost up their downloads around Christmas time, which is like the peak season, as we know. So,
right, yeah,
um,
makes sense.
yeah, so something that you mentioned is like customer lifetime value. So, how do you think about it in terms of like the games that you work with?
You know, what do I think about the lifetime value?
Yeah, how do you approach that with some of your clients?
Yeah, the way I approach it is a lot of times developers won't really know their lifetime value. So there's a lot of working with them on figuring that out. That's very important. Even if you're not running ads, it's important to know that. It's important for the dentist down the street, as much is for myself as much as it is for mobile games. It's just a business metric.
Yeah, and
And that
that's yeah.
basically,
Sorry, go.
yeah, I was just gonna say that basically tells you, you know, how much marketing you can do and how much return you can get for it, and where's the measure for breaking even there or doing well or doing bad.
And how do you calculate it? Is it based on a number of years or a number of sessions every year? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in its simplest form, um, yeah, this is difficult to communicate. There's an article that I tweeted recently that's just a case study in how complicated it can be for a mobile game to calculate this number. And I think that would be a good show note for you to
hmm
drop. I'll have to send you that link. But
sure.
basically, what I'm saying is that it goes from the very simple to the wildly complicated. And it kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, where once you start playing the game of ads, things get complicated very quickly.
Yeah, and I know one thing. It ties very heavily into retention, and I
Hmm.
know social games, and I suspect mobile games are very similar. I read a stat that said something like it's almost like 96% churn over 12 months.
Yeah.
So the loyalty in mobile games and social games is actually quite low typically.
Yeah, it's very low. And I think that that is an effect of this mentality in the mobile games industry that to be successful, you have to buy into mobile ad networks,
Hmm.
which is completely blows my mind. If you think about it, the way that these games are monetizing are by literally getting their users to stop playing their games. It makes completely no sense at all. For if I'm a mobile game developer who has mobile ads, or I'm tied into a mobile ad network, the only way I can make money is if you stop playing my game. That's a huge conflict of interest. I mean, there is IAP and there is stuff like that. And then the argument that you hear for that often is that, well, it doesn't matter. The players that click away from your game would have never spent money with you anyway,
Hmm.
which I think is a horrible way of looking at your customers. I think that if you go to any industry in the world, not just mobile games, you'll see that you should be nurturing your customers, that there is an opportunity there to nurture them into an IAP
Yeah.
or to nurture them into something as simple as an email address so that you can reach back out to them at the holidays and say, hey, here's something new in our game. Instead of just saying, oh, they don't matter. I think that's a terrible, terrible outlook.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've read some of your blog posts, and you talk about like building the brand a lot, and also building like the company, and like so you kind of
Yeah.
buying into like the titles the company releases, not just the particular product or the game that
Yeah,
you just played.
absolutely. Yeah, so that kind of goes along with what I was just saying. A lot of mobile game developers really what they're doing is they're just peddling games.
Mm,
And they're just again, they're seeing that mobile ad network as a way to like, oh, I can just do this and but it's really not that easy. I think that at the top level, if you look into the top 10 mobile game developers, what you're going to see is companies who are interested in building and maintaining a core audience that they can rely on
yeah,
time and again. They're not just passing users, casual users through their game.
yeah. And I wonder like how much of that has been influenced by your previous work as well, like working with like say the Call of Duties and like Guitar Hero, because they're all probably all about building this iconic like brand and franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. When I worked with Call of Duty, part of that project was building the community website for all of those players, complete with like leaderboard stats and all those crazy stats that go along with those games. How many headshots you had is versus body shots or anything like that. So there's a great sense of community there. There is the pure advertising side of that world as well. Like I don't want to paint it all like it's the perfect model. It's not. There is definitely display ads there and other things that people hate. But at the core, there's a lot of community in those games. They're big games. They cost money, and people find them to be hobbies. But I think the core of this whole like build an audience thing really has to do with business 101 at the end of the
Mm.
day. Don't just peddle games, build your business, build your brand so that you can be the next Blizzard, you can be the next Supercell, or what have you.
Yeah, and I think it goes to almost like building a loyal audience, right? That
Yeah,
constantly comes back to play the game and all your other titles as well.
yeah. So a lot of the mobile game developers that I talk to, they all have this problem with visibility and the problem with these ads, and they all kind of say the same thing. They're all like, high quality players are the only thing that matters. And I try to show them like, well, you're sending them away from your game and
Hmm.
then not caring about them afterwards. You have to stop and take a few steps back and figure out like how do we foster this community and how do we approach attracting high quality players instead of just chasing them down with ad money.
Yeah, and how much of that is also related to, like you said, the business model of games, like with like the almost like having like the now the trend is like free to play, getting them in the door,
Right.
and then getting them play a little bit, trying to sell them more stuff, or saying you're now stuck in this section like in Candy Crush, and you have to buy
Yeah.
this hammer or something before you can get to the next stage.
Yeah, it's very related. It's hand in hand. The number one way that free to play games monetize is through mobile ad networks or mobile advertising, where you play the game and you see that banner across the top,
Yep.
or you see after you've died, there's this big interstitial video ad, or if you play SimCity Build It, you have to watch this video before you can get more simoleons or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that Crossy Road does it really well. Like if you watch like a video, like a Unity ad video unit, you actually get coins or points, and
Right, yeah.
and then Unity actually put that as like a I think as an example of how to use it. I think they were probably one of the first to do so.
Yeah, that was an excellent use of advertising, in my opinion. For the most part, I kind of hate mobile advertising. I think
Yeah,
that I've kind of gotten real about that in the last. I've been very careful about my language for a long time, but recently in my newsletter, I kind of wrote everybody and I said, look, I'm sorry for being disingenuous. I really do hate mobile advertising, and here's why. And then at the end of that newsletter, I kind of said, but wait, I do think it's good for this one situation. And I really was talking about the hipster whale situation with the Unity ads, because I think that game was so good, it would have survived without the ads.
Mm-hmm.
And when they used the Unity ads, they made millions of more dollars just by doing that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that at the end of the day, I'm a capitalist, and if I can help you make millions of more dollars by using Unity ads, and it's not going to hurt or have an adverse effect on your company or cause you to have to shut your doors in 6 months, then that's what we'll do.
yeah.
That's exactly what I'm going to do, and that's what I'll recommend you do.